And we are back, and we hope you're having a good year. The vaccines are going out. We hope everybody is kind of lining up to get life back to normal again. We have an amazing interview this week with our good friend Doug Blush, who one of the all-time great documentarians, and we go back, Tim, with Doug. We all did Veritas segments for Ray together.
Yes. Doug, a big part of that, and really interesting. The filmmaker, of course, Doug, involved with Icarus a couple of years ago.
That's right.
I guess that was Oscar nominated, if I'm not mistaken.
Oscar nominated, may even have won. Honestly, I lose track. Doug has been to the Oscars. It's like he goes to the Oscars more often than than anybody else I've ever known.
Yeah,
it's
20
ridiculous.
from Stardom, Doug.
Yeah.
That was, I know. So anyway, fantastic.
And his new film is Rock Camp. It's amazing. It's wonderful. So we have a great interview with Doug about that, and that'll be at the end of the show. A few other quick things. Just want to mourn the passing of the great Henry Aaron, otherwise known as Hank Aaron. Not an actor per se, but certainly a cultural icon that I don't think I have seen the equal of in sports in my lifetime, with the possible exception of Muhammad Ali.
Yeah, Hank Aaron. As a kid growing up watching, he was around for a long time, Hank Aaron. So when I did follow baseball in the late '60s and middle '70s. Guys like Hank were still around, and he broke that Babe Ruth record and all that kind of stuff. I do not know. I cannot think of a film, say like a film the level of 42. The great Jackie Robinson, Chadwick Boseman, sort of breakthrough film. I cannot think of an equivalent for Hank Aaron.
There isn't one. There isn't one. It's interesting. Here's the interesting thing about Hank Aaron, and I've talked to people about this too. The thing is that movies need drama, and to have drama, you need flawed people. And wonderful people make wonderful documentaries and biographies, but wonderful people don't really make great subjects for movies. And apart from his general life struggle, which was significant, he grew up poor and completely self-made man. But Hank Aaron, just not a bad guy. He didn't beat anybody up. He didn't drink too much. He didn't have he didn't go to court. He didn't have any messy divorces. Like there aren't the things that usually make for a dramatic story just sort of aren't there. He's just a wonderful guy, and he faced opposition and he beat it, and he became a great athlete and a wonderful role model. There it is.
Yeah. It's kind of one of those things. He's not exactly the Jackie was the first. Those firsts.
Yes,
you can always say movies about firsts. First this, first that, first whatever. Hank is not exactly a first. He was a guy in pursuit of a record. And the framing of that story, there's really only one framing to that story, relatively speaking, and it has to do with the trials and tribulations that he had to go through vis-a-vis race from that period. In the 60s, right up to when he broke the record. But even that, framing such as it is, ultimately has sort of like a wonderful sort of denouement. When he hits that home run, and all of the naysayers and the haters faded away. They all
and I remember that day. I was not a baseball fan. I'm a soccer guy, but my father was a big baseball fan and loved it growing up. And my father saw Babe Ruth play.
Yeah,
like my father actually saw Babe Ruth hit a home run, and possibly more. And so that was something that was, in his mind, that record is never going to fall. That's just, Babe, the Babe is going to be the Babe forever. And slowly and surely, Aaron just kept pumping them on and putting them in and pumping away and had that long career, kept playing, didn't go away, stayed healthy. And finally, people started to say, I think Hank Aaron's going to beat the record. Like, it became a reality at a certain point when you just realized he wasn't going to retire. He wasn't going to stop. He had longevity. And I remember I was a little kid, and I was about my daughter's age, and I'm on the playground, and a bunch of other kids just said, did you hear Hank Aaron beat he beat it? And it was just like this. I was like, really? Are you kidding me? And my father was just so awestruck. He was so impressed that somebody had done it. It was like almost tears in his eyes at the fact that somebody had actually beaten that record. That was like the unassailable record that was never going to fall. And I don't know that we have any more of those. I really don't.
It's an interesting, because even as we sit here, we talk about Hank Aaron and Breaking Babe's record and all that kind of stuff. The reality is that the holder of that record is not Hank Aaron. He hasn't
No.
held for a long time.
Well,
Bonds.
as far as I'm concerned, it's Hank.
It's all very complicated when you talk about
Yeah.
steroids.
Yeah.
But it became a thing of where we stopped talking about it.
Yeah.
When I was coming up, Mark McGuire was the guy on the hunt for that out of St.
Yeah.
Louis. Where we stopped talking about it with Hank Aaron. And
Yeah.
no matter how many home runs other, really, whether steroids, no steroids, whatever, go on to do, it'll be Hank Aaron that we talk about. It will
That's
always have been this thing that Babe held and that Hank broke. And
Yep.
if another 50 guys hit 800, 900, 1,000 home runs, we will not talk about them.
Yep.
We're going to talk about
True.
Babe and Hank, because some things just work that way. I don't know what that is, but it breaks the mold, and we're not going to talk about it anymore.
There it is. A little bit of news, and then we have a listener mail, a really important listener mail we wanted to read. The news is that Cinedime has acquired Fandor. Now, those who don't know, Cinedime, of course, is a distributor. We talk about their movies every so often, and they've been acquiring libraries. They acquired The Film Detective not long ago, which has a streaming operation. Phil Hopkins, a longtime friend of this podcast, does the Film Detective releases, which are all old classic movie releases, and they do wonderful DVD and Blu-ray restorations of them. And have a wonderful little streaming operation that really people should take a look at. And Phil Hopkins is now going to be in charge of Fandor, so that's going to become part of Cinedime. And I think this is a really, really good consolidation. I'm not a big fan of giant corporate consolidation in the media business, but when some of these smaller operations that have a hard time kind of competing in the marketplace with other smaller operations, when they all kind of pull together, it's a little bit like a homeowners association. You know, they really they're putting all of their strengths together. Ovid.tv is another one of those kinds of exercises. In any case, I think this is a great thing. Cinedime and Fandor and Phil Hopkins and the Film Detective
the whole
all
point
together.
Is to reboot indie streaming. This is the point of this, right?
Yes, it is. It is to create a viable economic home for films that are from around the world, and independent films that would otherwise not easily get exposure elsewhere in the streaming world, which is becoming very, very brand oriented. Disney will only release stuff that's Disney. HBO Max is only going to do HBO Max branded and Warner branded stuff. Everybody's branding their own stuff. So if you're outside the circle, how do you get in? How do you get access to something? There's Criterion, there's Ovid, there's Film Movement Plus, but those companies have to acquire you. And Fandor kind of has a different model, and I think this is something that'll fly. I think there'll be really interesting things happening. And Phil Hopkins is a smart guy, and I hope we can get him on the podcast to talk about it at some point.
I wonder sometimes, because I've been thinking about. Obviously, we've been thinking about this ever since the pandemic started, and all kinds of services, sort of the Limley's virtual streaming service. There are a number of these small independent exhibitors that's turned to streaming services, branded streaming services, and I think you're exactly right. I have the feeling that if they were to simply sort of aggregate all under one roof, right?
Yeah.
Some sort of indie, whatever you want to call it, and every one of these sort of indie exhibitors let their product live under this one roof. But everybody would know that if you want to watch an independent film, you can go to one place. You don't have to figure out whether it's at here or it's streaming there. You know that if it's an indie film, you can go find it streaming here. And for filmmakers, man, that would just be fantastic for filmmakers.
It'd be wonderful. It'd be wonderful.
Your film would basically stream in every independent streaming under one roof, and you just forgot a way to split the dough.
I think we're going to see things move in that direction. And I think this Fandor deal, migrates us there. I don't think it gets us fully there, but it certainly is a step in that direction. You and I and Mark just exchanged an email with Oh no, it wasn't an email. It was a Facebook comment. I
Yeah.
take it back. I get our conversations mixed up. No, it was Andy Klein on Facebook asked me whatever happened to Patrice Leconte. Because we were huge Patrice Leconte fans. He had those
Oh yeah, also the
amazing
90s.
movies,
Yeah.
all through the 90s. And Paramount Classics released a lot of those. My friend Ruth was running Paramount Classics at the time with David Dinerstein, and they acquired and released those. The Widow of St. Pierre and Man on the Train and a lot,
No, the
um,
hairdresser's husband, all that stuff. Yeah.
yeah, wonderful stuff. And he's still making movies, but they're ever since the disintegration of the independent distribution companies here, Paramount Classics being wiped out around 2005 and 6, he has a hard time getting his films sold overseas. Now, most of them lately have been comedies. He's made some very funny comedies in the last few years. But I think of his last 5 or 6 films, only one of them was released here, and it was on DVD, not even Blu-ray. So something like Fandor, or like what you were just talking about, that opens the door, right? That says, hey, now you can have access to the market, and you don't have to play this song and dance at film markets, and you don't have to sort of get your head cut off in the deal. So I think the future is. I'm tentative in saying it, but I do think the future is bright in that regard. I think these models are going to pan out.
Mm.
So we got a great email from longtime listener Chevelle Dixon, and I'd really like to read it, and then we'll just talk for a second about what he brings up. But he says, "Dear DigiGods, there's been something on my mind regarding film criticism. I've felt ever since the death of the great Roger Ebert, a vacuum was created. The unfortunate thing is what has taken his place. The democratization of film criticism because of Twitter and other social media platforms has allowed anybody to be a film critic. Not a critic in the Ebert sense. Most criticism I see comes from people on film Twitter who look at film through a postmodern lens or a social justice view and contort films to fit what agenda they have. I had grown more disillusioned with these film critics, in quotes, over the years, and last year was my breaking point. The discourse over Joker that made me upset and frustrated. There was too much of criticizing the film before it came out, sneering at Venice for awarding it the Golden Lion, assuming it would cause outbreaks of violence akin to the Aurora shooting in 2012. The list goes on, sadly. Mainly, it was looked at askance because it was directed by Todd Phillips. Say what you want about his films, many I haven't seen, but I always give a film the benefit of the doubt. I felt Ebert did, and some film critics do still, but not many that I see. How film Twitter pitched Joker as some horrible evil that must be vanquished was unbelievable, but completely in line with the hive mind that film Twitter is. To make a long story short, I miss Ebert, and for my film reviews, I've tried to be fair and give a good analysis of the film I'm talking about. I've learned more about the craft of writing and the various disciplines that go into making a film. I bought one of the Filmcraft books on film editing, which is what I've wanted to do for the longest time. I have a good idea what makes a film work and understand what goes wrong when a film is terrible. I just wished a lot of online critics knew the same. Sincerely, Chevelle Dixon. And Chevelle, I want to thank you for that really heartfelt email. I think the other listeners needed to hear it because I think a lot of people feel the same way. Certainly, those of us who once upon a time were gainfully employed, but doing that feel the same way. And it's true. And my response was that this is. Hopefully we're going to have a turnaround someday. I do kind of see a place coming where Rotten Tomatoes is not just an aggregation of a lot of names and faces that are assigned a number, but where we get back to names and faces. And I do feel like we're eventually going to slingshot our way back. Tim, you had an interesting comment too.
Yeah, look, it's sort of a simple thing. One has to consider the source. What he's talking about are people who write reviews of movies or make reviews of movies,
Yeah.
and he's absolutely right. Sure, democracy, anybody can do it. Anybody can do it, and of course now anybody can do it and sort of broadcast or their opinion out there in a blog or on a website or a podcast, whatever it might be. Now that's all fine and dandy. I don't really have any problem with that. But I do think that the audience, that those folks out there listening to us, Chevelle, have to take into consideration the source. So you need to do exactly that. Anyone can absolutely proffer an opinion. Not everyone will be proffering a informed opinion. an opinion built on something other than literally just their opinion. You and I often joke about, we do Film Week, the radio program that we work, and we talk about a lot of stuff on those shows. And sure, we'll tell you whether or not we like a movie, but we often remind folks that the least important thing we will ever tell you about a movie is whether or not we like it.
That's such a great point. Such a great point.
The least important thing we'll ever tell you. Every other thing I say about a piece of cinema might be useful to you. Whether or not I like it, well, that's just me. And frankly, you shouldn't concern yourself with whether or not I like it. Everything else I say will matter. I promise you it will. It will be informed and hopefully fair and everything else.
And see, that's what I think people always appreciated about Roger Ebert's reviews. Whether Roger Ebert liked a movie or not, I didn't care. I disagreed with him on so many movies, but I always read his reviews.
Yes.
I always read them because there was always going to be an observation in there that I thought, well, that's a great thing to point out. I think you're totally wrong in your opinion of the film, but I'm glad you pointed that out.
Yeah. These things that he will understand and explain about cinema and how it will add up to an opinion. In terms of whether or not an individual likes the movie. It may not add up to the exact same opinion for me, but that information, that deep dive in understanding the nature of cinema in the first place, the nature of this movie, the filmmakers who made it, all of that kind of stuff, totally useful. I like it, I don't like it, who cares? But it's an opinion that's there. But anyway, to the folks who are out there, that's what you have to do. You have to, it's a buyer beware kind of thing. And then eventually you will hone your choice of film critic down in the same way that you hone your choice of films down. And you'll know what you like and who you like, and that's who you want to talk to or have talk to you. I guess we'll put it that way.
Yep, I agree. Well, Chevelle, thanks again for that question. And it's it is important, and we're all going to kind of sit around and we'll hope for the best, but it's the Wild West right now as far as film criticism. But I do think there's light at the end of the tunnel.
Now, dude, I don't want to suggest for 1 second that I'm against diversity of voices coming into the criticism realm. We're both the members of LAFCA, and we're very big about that. Women, and critics of color. But again, informed, expert people of diversity offering those opinions, not just just because you're a woman or just because you're black or just because you're Latino. That won't get it. No.
Agreed. And I think there has been some criticism of us for doing that. And I'll just kind of leave it at this to push back on that a little bit. It's one thing when your job is to manufacture, faucet fixtures. Well, everybody uses the same damn faucet fixtures. Plumbing is universal, but movies are an art, and they come from every corner of the globe, and they come from every culture, and they express personal experiences. And we celebrate the diversity of points of view and culture and language and all the things that show up in movies. I mean, especially if you love foreign films, you celebrate that. So I do think that it is a valid point that we want just as much richness in the diversity of the people who evaluate the movies as we get from those who make the movies. And very often, that's the thing I love in LAFCA. LAFCA has such a rich collection of people now. And it's fascinating how people come at different movies with different perspectives. We have, look, very often the people who are hardest on Asian films in our group are the Asian members of the group.
Yeah,
frankly, it's really kind of fascinating. You'll have some of the for example, I had this experience once with a friend of mine who's Korean. And I had seen a Korean film and I loved it. And I had lunch with her afterwards and I said, "Oh my gosh, I just saw this film. It's so gorgeous. It's beautiful." And she looks at me with this sneer and she goes, "It's about a guy and a girl and it's a period thing and they run away in the forest and they do this and that." Right? And I was like, "Oh, yeah." She goes, "Yeah, there's a lot of that." And my enthusiasm for a film from her country was just shot down. It was just wrecked.
That's a soap opera where I come from.
Yeah. So that kind of thing is so refreshing to experience, and it's wonderful to have those voices in LAFCA and to be able to have those conversations and those debates, and it's really refreshing. And I hope we get more of that on Rotten Tomatoes as well, because there isn't enough right now, frankly.
Yeah.
So I'm going to talk about just a few things things real quickly. We're going to launch into a lot of TV today. Before we get into it, we do have some exploitation stuff left, and also a couple of wonderful criterions I want to talk about right out of the gate. One is a film a lot of people have probably never seen. It's called The Ascent. It is an absolutely delightful Russian film from 1977. Probably delightful isn't quite the way to put it with any kind of a Russian film. It's tough. It's really tough. But The Ascent is by the late great female Russian director Larisa Shepitko, who of course was married at one point to Elem Klimov, who did his own masterpiece in Come and See, one of the great power couples in the history of cinema, and of which there have been a few. And this really is an extraordinary masterpiece in its own way. The Ascent is just absolutely beautiful. This went on to win the Golden Bear at the Berlin Film Festival in 1977, which nobody paid attention to because that was the year of Star Wars and Close Encounters. And it takes place during World War II and follows a couple of Russian partisans who are trying to survive the horrors of the really, really tough winter in the region, which today is Belarusia. It's an independent country today, but at the time it was just the Belarusian Republic, and they're fighting Nazis, and it's really a wonderful allegory. It's also a film of survival. It's shot in black and white, but in black and white, the snowy backdrop, the wintry backdrop is just Bergman-esque. It's gorgeous. It is poetic. It is an incredible film. Has a ton of beautiful extras on it, including a 1967 short film by Shepitko called The Homeland of Electricity. And then there's also a tribute to her that was made in 1980 by Elem Klimov after she passed away. There are a couple of other documentaries on here. There's an introduction by her son Anton Klimov, her son with Elem Klimov. It's just absolutely a beautiful select scene commentary with scholar Daniel Bird. You got to get this. If you haven't seen the film, it's such a revelation.
It's one of those films where if you go look, there because not a lot of these films have trailers that you can easily find. You can find the trailer for this film, and it really is
so gorgeous,
beautifully done. Yeah.
And then we also have the Rolling Thunder Review, a Bob Dylan story by Martin Scorsese. This came out in 2019, about a year and a half ago. I think it was just about a year and a half ago it came out. It's about 2.5 hours long, and Martin Scorsese's documentaries are really not given enough credit. He just kind of does these nostalgic music documentaries every once in a while. Yes. This one is fabulous. It's just a great look back at 1975. And when Bob Dylan was going on this amazing tour that they called the Rolling Thunder Review, that included everybody from Joan Baez to all these other figures at the time, counterculture figures, rock music figures, it's really it's kind of a documentary, it's kind of a concert film, it's kind of neither, it's a little bit of both. But it's really wonderful, and Scorsese does some of his best ever work with this. You can tell he just loves it, and there are heaps of extras, including stuff that never got into the film, and a restoration demonstration that's pretty cool. Shows you how far restoration technology has come. Yeah. Nice custom packaging, too. The Rolling Thunder Review, a Bob Dylan story by Martin Scorsese.
He did the, what was it, Last Waltz, I think it was. The
Last Waltz is the other one. Yeah.
Yep.
A few other new films. The Christmas in quotes film Fatman, starring Mel Gibson as Santa Claus, is quite a hoot. I keep seeing Mel Gibson at the playground. It's the funniest damn thing. It really is. Like, especially after Fatman, it just cracks me up because we have a playground here, and Mel has a couple of kids that go down and play, and my daughter plays, and next thing I know, my daughter's playing with Mel Gibson's kids and has no idea who they are or who he is. It's very funny, but Fatman is basically. It means to be a comedy, kind of, but the idea here is that Santa Claus is a rough and tumble, gruff guy who's starting to hate his job because he keeps getting shot at by kids when he flies his sleigh, and the government isn't paying as much as it used to, so now they want him to do a little bit of industrial military work on the side. Meanwhile, there's this really nasty little kid who got a lump of coal from Santa Claus because he's bad, and the kid, he's this rich, sociopath who then hires his usual muscle, Walton Goggins, to kill Santa Claus. Well, of course, you wind up with an overtly Sergio Leone ending, even with the complete Sergio Leone music, where it's just Mel Gibson going mano a mano with Walton Goggins, and it is so brutal. It is so bloody and violent. It's so incredible. And you're like, this is a Santa Claus movie? Yes, it is. It's called Fatman, and I love it. And Marianne Jean-Baptiste should get credit too for playing Mrs. Claus. She's really good, and it's just
who are these brothers? Who are these Nelms
guys? I don't know.
And something. How do you say it's the other guy? Who are they? Where the hell are they from?
Ian and Esham Nelms, I guess is how you pronounce it. Yeah, the Nelms brothers came out of the blue. They've made a few other films, I think. I don't know much else about them, but boy, did they kind of pull this off. The tone is really difficult. A lot of people criticize this film for the tone, but I think the tone is what they were going for. I think they want you to wrestle with this movie a little bit. And it's so different. I'm so grateful for it. It freaks me out a little bit because I laughed myself silly at the trailer. And then I was watching the movie for Film Week, and I was like, "Oh, I don't think I want to laugh at this. This is a little disturbing." But it is fun, and Mel's the right casting for it because he brings a lot of baggage to the part.
Yeah.
We also have Dean Cain and Christy Swanson in Trafficked, A Parent's Worst Nightmare. This is a little bit of a kind of faith-adjacent film about sex trafficking. It is it's not quite the film you really want it to be, but I gotta tell you, I'm grateful for any movie that goes into this and deals with this subject matter. There's more good being done just by this movie existing than not existing. So, it's a straight to DVD thing from Kino Lorber. It's called Trafficked, and it does come with a recommendation. Yellow Rose is on Blu-ray. Did you see Yellow Rose this last year, Tim?
Yellow Rose. That's not ringing the bell. Let me look at
Yellow Rose. It's this wonderful kind of immigrant story about this young immigrant girl who and country music and her love of country music. She's this Filipina girl, and she's this little Texas town, and she just wants to be a country singer. And it's absolutely wonderful. We've Betty Buckley was in the one where she plays the Irish girl who becomes a country singer. This is
I remember, yeah.
A little bit of the same thing too, Eva Noblezada, who plays the lead part here, is a revelation. She's got a huge career ahead of her. I just think it's wonderful. So I think this is a really touching, super sweet film. Good production from Stage 6, released by Sony on Blu-ray. Also, Once Upon a River by, as long as we're speaking about Rose, the filmmaker here is Harula Rose. The star is Kanadi Della Serna. This is a film movement release on DVD. Did not really get a theatrical release. Film Movement has put this out, and this is the story. Kanadi Della Serna plays this Native American teenager who goes on. She runs off to look for her mother, from whom she's been estranged for a very, very long time. And it's a road trip. It's an allegory. It's kind of Nathaniel Hawthorne-esque in that regard, but it's a really very powerful and very touching kind of allegory of the American myth and the rough edges and the price of it. It's quite a good film. I wish it were on DVD, on Blu-ray. It's only on DVD. It's called Once Upon a River by Harula Rose. And then the last of our new films is a pretty good little scare fest. Come Play. He's good at taking friends. That's our tagline. This is it's not the scariest horror film I've ever seen. It's not even really kind of it is a horror film, but it's almost more of structured more of a thriller, more of a traditional thriller than a horror film.
Kind of a techie kind of thing with the cell phones and the stuff.
Yeah, I feel like it's kind of J horror adjacent. It's got a little bit of the Ring going on, and from that moment of J horror about 15, 20 years ago. But yeah, this is about a boy who's just way too into his devices, his phone and his tablet, and there is let's say a monster wants to use his devices as a portal into this world, kind of like how the television was a portal for Samara in The Ring.
Yeah.
And now parents have to get involved and stop it. It's fun. It's spooky, it's scary, it's tense. It kind of does, pushes all the right buttons. I think it's a little, it's a little bit light compared to what even you get in Stranger Things, but and Movies Anywhere code on it. And then just a few exploitation titles to make mention of real quickly. Got some here from Mondo Macabro. 7 Women for Satan. That's a family film. This is from 1977. This is it's a French exploitation film that was apparently never screened in France, and Mondo Macabro has it. Made in actually it was made in 74, but it was, I think, released in 77. So I think that's what it is. Anyway, it's just, it's a straight up low budget satanic thing. Lots of gore and horrific stuff in it. The plot's kind of irrelevant. Then there's also Sins of the Flesh from Mondo Macabro, which is also from the same year, 1974, also French. Doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. It kind of tries to be scary and exploitative and horrific and sexy all at the same time. The director of this film is kind of a notorious figure who worked under a pseudonym. Claude Mulot worked under the pseudonym of Frederick Lansac. And so, it's kind of hard to necessarily track down a lot of his films, but this is one of them. And, Anne Libert, if you know her, she was in the Jess Franco film Erotic Rites of Frankenstein. She's also a star of this. And then a couple of other exploitation films here. Rituals with Hal Holbrook is just a pretty straightforward, satanic ritual movie. It deserves better, really. Hal Holbrook is not well served by this necessarily. This is from 1976, and it's a psycho movie. Guy going after campers, and not much else to it, but it's one of those movies that has kind of a little bit of a cult status. And then the last 3 here, Tintorera, Tiger Shark. This is from Kino Lorber, and this is a 1978 movie that is clearly trying to do what Jaws did just a few years earlier, but without spending a single dime. Not a dime. It's just people fighting a tiger shark off the coast of Mexico. The plot doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but you know what? Some of the stuff in it is kind of funny. There's a great audio commentary with Troy Howarth and Rod Barnett that is actually really fun to listen to. This was based on a book by Ramon Bravo, which had to be a ripoff of Jaws. The only real reason to see this, I've got to say, is because Basil Polidorus did a great score for it, and it just elevates the whole movie. A little bit less serious is this Blu-ray from a 4K transfer of Giant from the Unknown. This is a deluxe edition taken from a 4K transfer right off of the negative. This is from the film Detective, Phil Hopkins' operation that we were talking about earlier, who is now running Fandor, and it's from the library of Wade Williams, my namesake, who was kind of his library. He produced a lot and directed a lot of exploitation stuff, mainly in the 70s. And this is an early one. This is from 1958. It is kind of a... It's sort of more of a thriller than anything straightforward exploitation. It's really not. It's not bad at all, actually. It all kind of centers around searching for ancient artifacts left by the conquistadors and how those artifacts do what the King Tut stuff usually does, which is creates all kinds of horrific, mysterious stuff in the present. It drudges up. The Mummy is sort of the original model for this. So Giant from the Unknown, the deluxe edition, kind of in the same vein. And then the last one here is Death Laid an Egg with Gino Lollobrigida and Jean-Louis Trintignant. This is not exactly an exploitation film, but it is a cult film. It's been released by Cult Epics. This was made in 1968. And, Gino Lollobrigida and Jean-Louis Trintignant are both really, really outstanding performers, but they would do kind of weird, fringy things every once in a while. And this is a serial killer story that has a really interesting little noir-y twist to it that you aren't going to see coming, even though I've told you there's a twist. It's it's kind of like high grade Italian horror, high grade giallo in a sense. But it really does belong to that world. It just has a better cast and a better script and better direction than you would normally expect. The director is Giulio Questi. So an exploitation film with A film credentials, let's call it, and that is from Cult Epic's Death Laid an Egg. Definitely check that one out. So, Tim, let's move on to some TV. What else do we have on the TV front?
Well, House Divided is the one that popped up that I found most interesting. House Divided is kind of a neat series set here in Los Angeles, and I like the backdrop of it. It's the 2019 series. I think we have season 2. Basically, the way this series is shaped, it's kind of like Empire, but not nearly as corny or melodramatic or soap opera-ish as Empire. So the series is set around this black family, this very powerful black family in contemporary Los Angeles, but they are descendants of a black woman, a former slave who escaped the South and came to Los Angeles and became the first millionaire, extremely wealthy the woman, few women, black women in the country, in the city, and over the years, her descendants, and she has a particular daughter, great granddaughter, who passes away as this series starts. And what this series is about is how this family, is reacting to the passing away of this very important sort of matriarch. You got some interesting people in the film, including Lawrence Hilton Jacobs, of course, goes all the way back to what was that?
Cotter.
Welcome Back, Cotter, and all of that. Paula Jai Parker. And whatnot. It's a pretty good series. I like it. It's kind of like reminded me of like a Dynasty or something like that, only within the context of this black family in Los Angeles with this deep sort of history, or a Falcon Crest might even be a better example.
It's not a bad show. It really isn't a bad show. I've seen a few episodes. I think Lawrence Hilton Jacobs is still a really fine actor. I think the Cotter kind of followed him around a little too heavily. It was great. The Jackson Family miniseries where he plays Papa Jackson. I think was one of his better moments. But I would also point out too that this premise of a very, very successful black businesswoman from that period is I don't know if they were drawing on this, but there is precedent in the story of Lovey Yancey, who is a great icon of mine, who founded Fatburger, my favorite fast food restaurant.
Yeah.
So long live Lovey and that great story. I'm going to make quick mention too of a couple of things that did come in fairly recently. One is season 1 of Bordertown, which I've kind of followed a little bit of its existence more than watching it. This is a Finnish series. It's a crime thriller from Finland, and a lot of really interesting shows are showing up. By the way, new on Netflix is the new series with Omar Sy, who was in our short.
You've seen it? Short film. Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah, it is officially now it's based on it's called Lupin, Lupin. It's based on a French graphic novel series, and it got 70 million viewers like right out of the gate. It's the most watched series in the history of Netflix around the world. Most of it obviously in French speaking parts of the world, but still it's like freaking the high, more than anything else, more than the Queen's Gambit or any of that stuff. So Omar, who was in our little almost Oscar nominated short, is all the rage on Netflix. So see if we can get a little traction out of that.
When I saw Netflix, I think it was dubbed, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. Well, I don't care if it's dubbed or not. I'm going to watch it. I'm going to watch it in French, and I'm going to enjoy it. In any case, Finland has some good shows, and Bordertown is one of them. I could see this being remade as well. These are 11 episodes. This is season 1. And it is it takes place basically in this border town between Finland and Russia, which have very, very tense history. And it's kind of like rural or even more than rural, like mountain noir, I think is what it probably a better way to put it. But dealing with murder and serial killers in these in this really, really rugged area. It's very, very cool, and I love Finnish filmmaking to begin with. I don't think there's enough of it, so good on Kino for that. And then the Good Lord Bird from from Showtime, their limited series.
Ethan Hawke.
That they did, yes. Ethan Hawke plays John Brown in this, and he's just so freaking good. I would never have cast Ethan Hawke as John Brown. it would never have entered my mind. He doesn't have the physical stature. John Brown was big and imposing, and tall and lean and kind of crazy, and I, e- yeah, the face, But damn, if Ethan Hawke doesn't just rise into that and occupy that stature, even if he doesn't have it physically, very very impressive. And I wish this was on Blu-ray. It's not. It's only on DVD. But if you can see it, see it in whatever form you can. It's
The
really good.
the I think his name is Hubert de Jour,
Yeah.
the little boy,
Yeah.
who more or less narrates the entire series. Just an excellent turn. I think it's a short run series. I think it's only 7 or 8 episodes, something like that, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
And
it's about that, about six
yeah,
and a half hours.
it's just worth it to just knock out the whole daggum thing. I live in Pasadena, which is not terribly far from a community called Altadena, which is just up the hill from me a little bit. And of the few of John Brown's children who survived the massacre at Harper's Ferry, and then all of the things that happened, one of his sons fled out west here to the community of Altadena, just above where I live. And
Wow.
in his marker, his grave marker, John Brown's last living son's grave marker is
Wow.
can be found up there. It's kind of in a hidden spot. It's very interesting.
Very impressive.
Yeah. Grant, this TV miniseries, executive produced by Leonardo DiCaprio as well as others, which basically is kind of a comprehensive series about the Union general and eventual president Ulysses S. Grant. And it was very, very good. Grant being played mostly by Justin Salinger in this film. Did you get a chance to watch any of the Grant?
I did. It's it's one of those docudrama-y things. It's sort of not entirely one or the other,
Yeah.
right? It sort of blends the two to be true to the whole History Channel thing. They want you to take it more seriously than a pure drama, but all the dramatic reenactment stuff is certainly good enough to be to be right up there with any regular miniseries. So they're splitting the difference for their audience, but really the everything in it is spot on. The historical accuracy of it, and I did enjoy the fact that I kind of felt for the first time, because I've seen Grant depicted in so many movies, and I felt for the first time I kind of was getting the soul of Grant. Grant was like Teddy Roosevelt, this larger than life figure who was, on the one hand, a scholar, an incredibly educated and smart man, but on the other, a completely insane, rough-hewn, Wild West figure. And we forget that those things could live in the same people at that time, and sometimes they had to. But that said, it is still my second favorite performance of Grant. My favorite is the guy who played Ulysses S. Grant on a few episodes of The Wild Wild West.
yeah. During the residency. Yeah. This is kind of a young Grant here. Edie Falco had a new series back in 2020 called Tommy. Paul Ignacio created series where she is playing a cop who becomes the first female chief of police of the Los Angeles Police Department. Something that's still yet to happen. So a little speculative fiction, and I think it's sort of an interesting series. It's there's nothing particularly new about the series. Kind of feels like many of the sort of LA set cop series that you've seen before, but nevertheless, the concept in and of itself is sort of interesting, and it was fairly well done.
If Edie Falco in a badge gets you all hot and bothered, then this is the show for you.
Yeah.
We talked about the first two seasons of Babylon Berlin recently, which has been quite the rage among a lot of people, and the third season is now out, 12 episodes. This is, of course, this wonderful Weimar recreation of Berlin during the period between the wars, and it is very, very well done. It's a German series, of course, in German with subtitles, but it's very, very well done, and high production value, great performances, and it dovetails with history in that way that Downton Abbey did as well. In many respects, even more so, because Germany in the late 1920s was kind of, Berlin as a city was ground zero with everything that was happening and that would happen eventually in Germany. So, it is right at the crossroads of so many historical currents, and I'm dying to see where they take this show in the next few years, because if they can keep this going for another 3 or 4 seasons, you're going to be dealing with the rise of Nazism and a whole lot of other really, the Olympics, and you're gonna get to a really really interesting place. So keep this going as long as you can. Babylon Berlin season 3, really really cool, and it'll be nice to get a box set of these things at some point too.
Yeah, neat. Blindspot, the 5th and final season. Blindspot. Look, I got into Blindspot when it first started. This beautiful young woman whose body is covered in these tattoos. And the FBI folks who are trying to, she can't remember who she is or what the tattoos mean. They have to read the tattoos and sort out what the heck is going on. And it's been going on for 5 years now. They've sorted most of that stuff out over the course of the run of the series Blindspot. Which like I said, I gave it 1 or 2 seasons there. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Blindspot. Rob Brown's in the series. And pretty good. I don't know. Did you go any deeper than the first season or 2 of Blindspot, man?
I did not, never watched a single episode of it, unfortunately, but I will use that as an opportunity to pivot to something completely unrelated, which is some stuff that my daughter will probably enjoy. I'm still debating whether I wanted to see it. By the way, just as a tangent, my daughter has gone completely nuts for Chuck Jones, like nuts, in a way that I never imagined she would. Like Bugs Bunny, who doesn't love Bugs Bunny, but she has watched The Rabbit of Seville 15, 16 times in the last 3 days. Like she just keeps watching it over and over and over. It's just surreal.
She doesn't even know getting a classical music education.
She knows what the she understands that it's based on an opera. She kind of understands what opera is, but she just loves every second of it. She recreates it. She laughs. It's the craziest thing. Anyway, what I've got here is not Chuck Jones. It's Garfield, which our good friend Mark always hated as a comic and as an animated show. Anyway, we've got 2 Garfield movies that are CGI animated. Garfield's Fun Fest and Garfield Gets Real in one, and then we've got Garfield and Friends, the original TV series, season 3, which has been remastered. I'm not quite sure why. It's an okay show. It's fine. It's sort of the same thing over and over again. So if you don't like Garfield, you're not going to like either of those. And then a little bit cooler is the 12th season of SpongeBob SquarePants from Nickelodeon, which I used to hate this show, and I thought it was lame until I had a child who now goes to school with other kids who love SpongeBob, and I'm slowly appreciating what it does and getting a sense for what makes it so popular with kids. 12th season, arguably the best season that it has had. It keeps getting better. The writing keeps getting sharper. So that is now on DVD as well.
I see Yellowstone here. This is season 3 of Yellowstone. When this series first started, I thought to myself, well, look, Kevin Costner going to television. But I got to tell you, this series has always had a sort of sweeping and grand sort of nature to it. It always put me in mind of some of the classic series that I watched growing up, like The Big Valley. Remember Barbara Stanwyck? I thought it was Barbara Stanwyck, right?
Yes, it was. Sure was. Barbara Stanwyck and Lee Majors.
Lee Majors and all, young Lee Majors, older Barbara Stanwyck. She had been a movie star for years and years and years, came to television, did The Big Valley. Yellowstone is sort of like analogous to in contemporary to what they were doing with a show like the Big Valley. Back when I was watching TV, thoroughly enjoy. This is season 3, Yellowstone.
And Taylor Sheridan created the show, no longer on it, but Taylor Sheridan has kind of become the new Western guy. He's helped resurrect the Western in modern times. Contemporary stories like Hell and High Water, which sort of are modern day Westerns and have sort of the same veneer. It's a hell of a show. It's doing a really good thing. I think Big Sky is trying to replicate it a little bit and not doing a very good job.
Yeah, and it has that
David Kelly thing.
Yeah, that David Kelly thing with that whole sort of mystery thing going on. Yeah.
We also have the complete series of Marseille, Liberty, Equality, Rivalry from Kino. So I have very mixed feelings about this show. This was on Netflix. Here's I don't even know where to even kind of begin on this. Florence Siri was the associate producer of this and kind of and one of the main directors of this thing. And I had interviewed him for Colco a few years back before this started, and I'm a big fan of Florent Siri. But the here's the other thing. I also lived in Marseille, so I know this city very well. I know, the day before I arrived in Marseille back in the 1980s, it was a very violent city at the time. It was still coming out of all of that French Connection drug trade stuff that had been going on in the 70s. And the day before I got there, someone had been executed at a stoplight when someone walking through the crosswalk in front of them pulled out a sawed-off shotgun and blew them away through the windshield of their car.
Ugh.
That's it's like Chicago type stuff, right? Like gangland Chicago in the 1930s. It was that kind of stuff that was going on in Marseille at the time. So I know how sort of the impression that the French have of Marseille. It's a rough town. It's a tough town. A lot of rugged stuff goes on. It's, port city, all that stuff. Gerard Depardieu, absolutely the right guy to be the political heavy in this thing. And it's mostly about the political battles. Gerard Depardieu is the mayor of the city, who's a very iron-fisted autocratic figure, and all of the give and take of this thing. But ultimately, I just didn't find the show very engaging. It felt like it cut a lot of corners. It was a little too much soap opera, and it didn't really give you that taste for the city. If I see a show about Marseille, I want it to be like the French Connection, or even the French movie The Connection with Jean Dujardin, which was set just a few years earlier than I was there, which is also very much about that. You can taste the air, you can taste the water, the salt in the water, and this didn't get it for me. So a lot of people like this show. I'm going to cut them a lot of slack for that. It just didn't work for me. I might be too close to it. But anyway, Marseille, the complete series from Kino on Blu-ray.
68 Whiskey. I only got a chance to watch a few 68 Whiskeys. It's set in Afghanistan. Interesting, sort of mix of troops at a fort, medic sort of operating base in Afghanistan. And it's sort of an interesting show. A lot of chit chat about the politics of it all, and working with the community. There haven't been a whole lot of stuff that's been set during any of our contemporary wars, at least not the television.
True.
Anyway, if we think about the stuff that was set during the Vietnam War, it hasn't been a whole lot of stuff that's really made it for me. This is at least fairly straightforward in its treatment of being deployed to Afghanistan with these medics. It's not MASH or anything like that, but it has its funny moments, but mostly it's big drama.
Got a few other things here. Let me run through these real quickly. Acorn Original Series, an Acorn Original on DVD only, not Blu-ray, is The Nest with Martin Compston, Mirren Mack, and Sophie Rundle. And this is a Scottish drama. We don't get a lot of stuff from Scotland, but this is a good, solid little Scottish drama about a couple trying to have a kid. And you think, okay, that's a really sweet thing. And then you have this accident that it throws them into a desperate, horrible situation, and that impacts their fertility issues. And there's all this other stuff then from the past gets drudged up. It's really a fascinating drama that goes in all of these different directions that you just don't see coming, and it's really, really wonderful to watch, and some great performances in it. So The Nest, not to be confused with the more recent independent film The Nest, that is in likely awards contention right now. This is the Scottish Nest from Acorn. And then we also have let's see, Mark Warren in Vander Valk from Masterpiece Mystery on PBS. This is a kind of just a pretty solid PBS mystery detective show. It doesn't really push the envelope in any unusual ways. It's pretty straightforward. It does what all of those wonderful European and mostly UK detective shows do, and it does it very, very well. But it doesn't rock the boat terribly. And then the third one here, which I am a really big fan of, this is another masterpiece. This is Sanditon. And it's interesting because Jane Austen, like many great artists and many composers and others, left unfinished work. And this was her unfinished novel, Sanditon, Sanditon. And Andrew Davies takes on the task of saying, why don't we finish it and finish it dramatically? And there he does. It is straightforward Jane Austen, all the usual mechanics of society and sexual politics that go into all of her work. It's here, but it's stuff that we haven't seen before. It's not, Pride and Prejudice. It's not Sense and Sensibility. It's not all Emma. It's not the stuff that's been done 150 times. So it does feel fresh, and they did preserve the Jane Austen sensibility to it. And I think it's absolutely wonderful. So check that out. That's on Blu-ray. Thank goodness, from PBS.
Yeah, I mean, I was always wondering whether or not that unfinished Jane Austen would ever get some sort of a treatment.
Thank goodness.
Grantchester. Let's see, what season is this of Grantchester? Looking at season 5.
Season 5.
Yeah. About the Cambridge clergyman who is kind of like a Father Dowling sort of style series. Only instead of set during whenever Father Dowling was set up, which I think it was, if I'm not mistaken, it's like doing the 30s and 40s, 50s, something like that. Father Dowling,
something. I think it was something. I can't remember.
A little bit later, and that's why I think I like about it that it's set in the late 50s, early 50s, late 50s. In this village, and sort of on the eve of everything, is well after World War II, but still there are all sorts of interesting things going on in the UK that play out in the background of this series in terms of politics and of the day. It's very interesting stuff. Grantchester, season 5.
We also have from PBS as well, Hugh Laurie in Roadkill, also from Masterpiece. Hugh Laurie, man, he just keeps working. The guy just does not go away. It's so impressive. So this is kind of playing to some of these more recent movements in the world where political outsiders, whether it's Trump or anybody else, come in from left field and shake up the establishment. And Hugh Laurie plays one of those kinds of figures. And there was a libel case that sort of made him famous, and the question is now, do we know enough about him? And this gets into the political machinations of somebody that we don't know a lot about, who may or may not be what we suspect. And I'm being super evasive to not sort of reveal any of the stuff in here, because it's all about the reveals in this. It's all about what you discover and what you don't see coming. So you see it for Hugh Laurie because he's really terrific.
Yes, there's also. I'm sorry, I was going to say.
Go ahead.
You were just about to talk about Avenue 5.
Yeah, go take it on Avenue 5 for sure.
Because he was in that too with Josh Gad, Avenue 5. It's sort of an interesting sci-fi series. This is season 1. Basically, you have the crew of this sort of space cruiser that takes people on these sort of and something goes aside. All kinds of rich people are going on these sort of space journeys. The kind of thing you imagine Elon might be doing for rich people in a couple of few years, whatever. And if something goes wrong and the ship gets thrown off course, and it's going to take them several years, not like Star Trek Voyager or anything like that. Years, like 4 or 5 years or something, to get back to Earth, and it's all about having to deal with these people on this elite space cruising ship for this many years. And it's Hugh Laurie and Josh Gad, and it's kind of funny, and I rather enjoyed it. This is season 1. I already know that there's a season 2, so it might be something you can sort of like get into.
And that was for HBO.
Yeah.
And then from Sundance Now series, The Secrets She Keeps, which is a pretty gripping thriller. I don't think you see this because it's any better than other thrillers, other TV thriller stories. There's just a lot of that on right now. But you are going to see this because it has a great cast. Laura Carmichael is fantastic on this. If you saw her on Downton Abbey, she's just absolutely wonderful. She's totally different in this. It takes place in Australia, and it's just one of those really one of those very smart. It's based on a novel. It's one of those very smart thrillers that seems to be about just the ordinary, average lives of suburban people, and then you find out that the things that are going on in these otherwise normal lives are not the least bit normal, and it has some pretty it has some pretty devastating stuff to say about the way that our current world is working, the online aspects of it, and what it's doing to our humanity. And it's told from a feminist point of view, which I thought was, refreshing in a thriller. Thrillers usually kind of preoccupy us with the neuroses of men, and this weaves us through the doings of women. The Secrets She Keeps, pretty great, from Sundance. I got two more Sundance Now series here, Bad Mothers and Sanctuary. So all of this, and I think this may be deliberate on the part of Sundance to do things that are very female-centric. And it's a good move. Half the audience is women, so you can't really blame them for doing that. There's an Australian element to this one as well, Bad Mothers. It takes place in Australia. It is not great, I don't think. It tries to sort of look at the struggles of modern motherhood and all of the baggage that now has become a part of it in recent years in our more complicated modern digital world. And this looks at a very specific series of events that trigger a lot of this. I don't think it quite wrestles with what it's trying to wrestle, but it's got some good performances. So, 8 episodes aren't going to kill you if you're looking for something that's kind of in that vein. Sanctuary is better. Sanctuary is a lot better. Sanctuary is quite interesting and quite smart. This is Josefin Asplund, who is a great Swedish actress. Is effectively, how do I do this without giving anything away? Because I'm not. There's certain details here. I'm not going to mention because it'll ruin it. Let's just say she's in the Italian Alps, and she's on a kind of a missing person quest. I know that doesn't sound really really super cool, but anyway, it from there it goes into some really fascinating places that you just don't expect, and the alpine backdrop is beautiful, and the cast is terrific. Matthew Modine, who started playing crazy people in the first season of Stranger Things, does a really good job here as well. So Sanctuary is a really really interesting thriller, and it is rightfully on Blu-ray because it looks so damn good.
Let's see here. Man with a Plan. I always love Joey, no matter what Joey is doing, even when he's not playing Joey, Matt LeBlanc. I thoroughly enjoyed Man with the Plan. I have been thoroughly enjoying Man with the Plan, and I'm not terribly much into sort of standard network sitcoms as I used to be back in the day. But Man with the Plan is one that pulls it off. I love Matt LeBlanc in this, sort of like playing this sort of blue collar guy. Who's taking care of the kids at home. And Matt's funny as heck is in this thing. And I'm really great that he has had a couple of great series post Friends, including what was it, Second Act or something like the one where he played an actor and he was set in the UK. That was an absolutely hysterical series too. So great work there, Matt LeBlanc.
As long as we're on this CBS Paramount stuff, let me just knock out a few of these. So we've got Survivor: Island of the Idols. There's nothing I can tell you about a Survivor series that you don't already know. I have never really watched much of this thing, so I decided to kind of like, okay, let's see what all the rage is about. And it's some fairly healthy people, all trying to prove that they're not as completely owned by modern society as we clearly know they are. So I mean, I can get why this show is a really big deal, but there it is. It's Survivor: Island of the Idols. Not too different from any other Survivor, apparently. And then John Steinbeck's East of Eden, with not the wonderful James Dean movie. This is the television version from 1981 that was really, for the most part, just kind of trying to traffic on the great popularity at the time of Jane Seymour, and she's wonderful in it. I don't think it rivals the original movie at all, but certainly a version of East of Eden with Jane Seymour in it is wonderful.
Cool. Robbie was this sort of neat television series, 2020 television series about this guy who runs this sort of church basketball league. And he's not really a great basketball coach or anything like that, but he wants to bring the team, the church league, bring the team back to its days of glory from when his father won 2 high school basketball championships back in the 90s, and he's working to do that. This is kind of a fun show. Shazia Zamata is in the show, and I always find her absolutely fascinating. Used to be on Saturday Night Live, made a couple of neat movies right before the pandemic hit. This is funny and sort of pointed and kind of cool. I thoroughly enjoyed it. So that's Robbie. What is that? The first season? I think it's the first season of Robbie. If I'm not.
Yes, it is. That is Robbie season 1 for Comedy Central. We got Love Fraud from Showtime. This was a documentary series that really completely. It's a little like Tiger King. You're like, these people live in my world. Like, how did I not know this? I don't even want to go out of the even if the pandemic goes away. If people like this are roaming around, I don't really want to know these people. It's very strange. This looks at this guy Richard Scott Smith, who for 20 years was basically an internet stalker going after women to try to defraud them. And this series tries to turn the table on him as these women come back together to seek revenge. And it is alluring. It is kind of satisfying, but you feel a little bit dirty at the same time. It's a really unusual show. It kind of pushes the boundary on ethics. Like, you want to see people punished, but you're like, I don't know if this is the way to do it. In any case, and then also real quickly, a few other things also from Showtime is the sports documentary series Outcry, which is a story I was utterly not familiar with. This is the story of Greg Kelly, who was a high school football star, and he was convicted of sexually assaulting a 4-year-old boy and then sentenced to 25 years in prison. And there were questions as to whether or not he was guilty and how the conviction was handled and all of that. And this is that story. This revisits everything that happened, everything that led up to it, everything that transpired since. It's fascinating, utterly fascinating. I don't remember it making national news, but it's a great documentary series, Outcry.
Yeah.
And then National Geographic also has The Incredible Dr. Paul season 17. If you have watched any of the Incredible Dr. Paul, the thing that is most notable about this show, about a veterinarian in Michigan, is this guy really hasn't aged over 17 years. So maybe being a veterinarian is a good deal. He kind of looks the same between all 17 seasons. I went and checked it out. I'm like, you know what? Good on you. I guess taking care of animals keeps you young. Anyway, 17 seasons of The Incredible Dr. Paul on National Geographic is serving him well. Got 3 from CBS, Paramount as well. These are more recent shows. Got the complete series of Carol's Second Act, which is Patricia Heaton in basically a medical comedy. It's not like, Scrubs or anything like that, but it's got its moments. I like Patricia Heaton. I think she's very, very funny. She does hold a show down very nicely, and this has a gag reel on it as well. Only ran for basically 1 season. But this is it, and it works. We have The Neighborhood season 2, which I'm trying to sort of figure out what they were going on about this. It's about basically there's a guy from the Midwest who moves to Los Angeles, and you wind up with a lot of jokes about the dorky white guy who lives next to Cedric the Entertainer, and I guess I don't know. I mean, it's sort of funny.
Seems like it's 40 years too late.
It does, right? It's like the Jeffersons. It's like or like the reverse Jeffersons or something.
Yeah.
It's like yeah. Anyway, I mean, Cedric is an incredibly talented actor, and I love seeing him work, but I do kind of feel like there's a better place for him. And then Alan Cumming in Instinct season 2. I'm also not quite sure what to make of this. This is another Paramount CBS thing. Alan Cumming plays an ex-CIA guy who has been who wound up working for the New York Police Department, and it's kind of a
it's not really a detective show because he's not a detective.
That's the thing. It's not a cop show, but it's not a comedy. It's not quite a drama. It's just kind of a character study, I guess, is a way of putting it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure where this series is going. It sort of seems to be trying to ride on Alan Cummings' personality and skills as an actor, but they're going to have to give him something to work with if this is going to last much longer. I hope it's going somewhere interesting, but it's a little bit of a tough slog
Yeah.
from what I watched. And then a couple here from Cartoon Network, not Cartoon Network, Comedy Central. Sorry, getting my cuz mixed up. South Side season 1, which I don't know. I don't quite understand why this is on Comedy Central. To be honest, this is about a couple of community college guys who become repo men and on Chicago's South Side, and it's all shot on location in Chicago. I I don't quite get it, Tim. Is there a cultural element to this that I'm missing?
Well, I look not deeply, so I'm not gonna. No, I'm not gonna stick that on it. This is just not all that funny. That's all. It fancies itself something like Sanford and Son.
Without a studio audience.
Well, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, see,
it's just nah, yeah.
and see, this may be the thing. The other day when we showed Hero her first episodes of the Flintstones, and she noticed something that I have never noticed before. She said, "It sounds like there are people on the TV laughing."
Mm.
And I said, "Yeah, that's called a laugh track." And for the first time, I realized that was something I always took for granted that she does not have on her television. She doesn't understand what a laugh track is.
No.
And so the inverse is that if I see something like Southside and I'm not getting the prompt of the studio audience, I'm kind of not sure if I should be laughing or not.
Look,
It's the problem I have with Community
community.
and with The Office and all of those shows. I kind of have the same problem.
Curb Your Enthusiasm. I know a lot of people love Curb Your Enthusiasm.
That too.
But I mostly wanted to punch Larry and
Yeah.
watching that show. I'm like, dude, you're the jerk. Anyway, it's just an interesting thing.
Well, similarly, I think I also kind of don't get Corporate, which is just finished its first season on Comedy Central as well. And this is kind of like the white collar version of South Side, which is like these two office droney guys working for this horrible company, and everything that's supposed to, I guess, be funny about this. Like, I love Office Space. Office Space wipes the floor with me.
Yeah.
This is not Office Space, and I'm watching this, and it's very kind of surreal in some respects, and I don't quite know what. Anyway, this appears to be the new Comedy Central thing, so whatever. Knock yourselves out. Let's see, few more things here. Tim, have you watched Taken, the Steven Spielberg thing?
Spielberg thing. A little bit of it. Yeah. Yeah.
It's does it feel like I like a lot of this, and this is a huge. I mean, this is just an for sci-fi on television. This was a huge kind of 14-hour epic.
Thing goes
That
back to
seems
it's late '90s, early 2000s.
yeah, it is. It's 2002. It was about
Young,
18
young,
years ago.
young Dakota Fanning when she was actually a little girl.
Yeah, it's this huge. I mean, she's beautiful in it. She's just a gorgeous little girl. But it feels like Spielberg's still trying to, as a producer at least, trade on a lot of the stuff that he had really moved past by that point. Close Encounters and E.T. and all that stuff. It feels like he sort of can't let it go, and he wants to just lend his name to it. It's all about all these interwoven stories of alien abduction and stuff that really it doesn't really carry a lot of popular currency in the culture anymore. It's very, very well done. It's very elaborate. It's just artfully executed. Wonderful performances, globe trotting, lots of wonderful filmmaking from a lot of different directors that Spielberg personally chose.
Of those, or at least one or two of them. Breck Eisner knocked off one or two of those.
Yeah, but ultimately, it kind of left me cold. I felt like, well, I'd rather watch Close Encounters. I just didn't feel like 15 hours of this gets me anywhere that I didn't get in 2 hours and 15 minutes of Close Encounters. So ambitious, but perhaps misguided in some respects.
Mm.
Also got some stuff from Warner Brothers here, real quickly. The 100. Are you a fan of the 100? Just finished its run. This is the 7th and final season here on Blu-ray.
Yeah, I was a fan of the 100 early on. Isaiah Washington, of course. That sort of conceit in the early part of the series where humanity was up on that what it was, a space station. I guess it's a space station,
Yeah,
a spaceship, whatever the hell it is.
yeah.
And then some of them get sit down to Earth and what all of that means, and it sort of really it goes off in a whole bunch of different directions. But yeah, I watched it for a couple of 2 or 3 seasons. I was into that.
It feels like a more existential version of Lost crossed with Stargate.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Yeah.
That's what it feels like. Anyway, I've only seen this intermittently, so watching some of the 7th season, I'm completely lost, to paraphrase the word again. But you kind of just assume that some of the things you're missing, you just go with it. So there's a lot of stuff here that I didn't really follow, but it's very, very well done. So that's on Blu-ray, the 7th and final season of the 100. And then on Blu-ray or on DVD only is the our 3 series that are in their 2nd season now: Manifest, You, and Legacies. I think of these 3. I don't know if you've seen any of these, Tim. I think of these 3.
Manifest was just kind of all over the place.
Yeah, not really into it.
No.
It's a good cast. Robert Zemeckis was involved in getting this out of the.
People on a plane. The plane disappeared some years ago, and then suddenly the plane reappears after many years.
Yeah,
and all these passengers are on the plane. They're the same age that they were when the plane disappeared, but X number of years has gone by. On Earth or whatever you want to call it. And everyone else has gotten older and grown up, and what happened and who did it, and blah blah blah.
And You isn't quite all that interesting either to me. This is, it's about it's just a regular kind of male female battle of the sexes drama. I don't quite, I don't find the characters all that endearing, but Greg Berlanti produced and co-wrote it. Greg Berlanti does all of the DC adaptations on CBS and affiliated networks, Flash and Supergirl and everything else, Black Lightning, all that stuff, Batwoman. So, and the Arrowverse, all the Arrowverse stuff. So this is Berlanti veering away from that a little bit, but it still feels very Berlanti just without superheroes. And I think I kind of need the people in tights. And then Legacies, I actually think is kind of interesting. It'll be interesting to see where this goes. This is sort of like if Harry Potter were done as a teen show. Less British, more American, and more CW, right? It's like, let's take Harry out of the UK. Let's make them all really cool American teenagers, and we'll put them in an American high school.
There's a whole lot of better looking kids with way better teeth.
It's true, and no accents, and that's basically what it is. And I gotta tell you, it's not Harry Potter, but it kind of sort of works. It sort of works a little bit. And then let's see, we're out of time now, but let's before we go into the Doug Blush interview, let's just lay out one more Ultraman Taro. I'm losing track of all the Ultraman shows. I think I missed most of them after the original, but this is based on. I guess this is the 6th Ultraman series from Japan, and 53 episodes of this one, and it's pretty much the same stuff, except he's got like horns, and it's a slightly different outfit. But it's still the same stuff, and I kind of like it. It's a little bit of a different story.
This is like middle 70s Ultraman, 70 something Ultraman, as opposed to our Ultraman, which is like 60s Ultraman.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I mean, maybe I saw this when I was a kid, but I do get them all kind of confused. So anyway, this is Ultraman Taro, the 6th series of the Ultraman shows, and it is on a beautiful Blu-ray Steelbook, like all of the others from Mill Creek. Quite a beautiful set. So there it is. That is it for our TV and everything else this week. We will be back next week, but now we're going to let you listen to our interview with the great, the amazing, the Academy Award winning and nominated great god of the documentary world, Doug Blush. Again, Doug and Tim and I were all participants in a documentary anthology series that Ray Green produced for the Silver Lake Film Festival many years ago, called the Veritas Project. We all made little documentaries, and Tim and I have gone on to host this show for you. Doug has gone on to win Academy Awards, and his film Rock Camp, which he directed and co-edited and co-produced and co-wrote. It is his baby through and through. It is an absolutely wonderful, wonderful film. You can see it now in virtual cinema. We'll talk more about that at the end of the interview. But without further ado, here is Tim's and my interview with the great Doug Blush. It is my enormous privilege to welcome to the podcast today, not just a great filmmaker, but a friend, and that always makes it so much more special. Doug Blush, one of the elite in the field of documentaries these days. It seems like every year he's at the Oscars, and half the time he's winning Oscars. And Doug goes all the way back with us to Ray Green's Schlock, and it's just been wonderful to watch his career. I'm going to throw it to Tim here in a second because Doug's film is much more part of Tim's DNA than mine. Even though I love it, I'm going to wait and I'm going to chime in because I'm a bad pianist and Tim comes from musician stock. The film is Rock Camp. Tells the amazing story of these fantasy rock camps that started 24 years ago as a brainchild of former sports agent David Fishoff. It's a wonderful film. Tim, I'm going to let you guys talk the talk now.
Well, I'm going to start by letting Doug say hello to the DigiGods audience here. Fans of yours, I can assure you, Doug. Go ahead and say hello to the folks who are going to be so excited to hear us talking about this fantastic documentary.
Well, thanks, Tim and Wade. And I guess you have to start this off with hello, Cleveland, just to keep in the spirit, and all the many other cities listening right now. I'm just really excited to talk about this with you guys. Wade and I go way back to early days of my doc work, and it's just really kind of thrilling that we've come full circle now, and we've got fun movies we can share at a time like this. So I'm thrilled to be here. Thanks, guys.
This is definitely one of them. Doug, associated with Academy Award nominated movies, documentaries, Icarus and 20 Feet from Stardom. Just wonderful films that we've talked about on the show. And here we have you with this fantastic movie about this fantasy camp that's been going on. I think what did we decide it was 25 years?
24 years. 24 years.
24 years.
So this is just a fantastic situation where regular folks can come to this fantasy camp and work with and be mentored by and play with the likes of Alice Cooper and Roger Daltrey and Sammy Hagar and Joe Perry and Gene Simmons and Paul Stanley. And we can go on, Nancy Wilson, and really, really rock. And we have these people from all walks of life, young and old, who have all levels of skill, and they come and they do this thing, and it's just amazing, And as an old rock and roll kid myself, I got to tell you, this is fantastic, Dutch. So where the hell did this idea come from, and how did you build it out into this amazing movie?
Well, first of all, I mean, the beauty of it is that sometimes fate intervenes in the doc world, and something just kind of comes to you that just naturally fits. I had heard of Rock Camp before, but it was one of those distant kind of wild things that was going on. I didn't know that there was a doc in progress, and had been for years. They had been filming, on every format known to man, and that made it extra fun making the film because we were literally reloading high-8 tapes and flip phone video and all kinds of stuff to go back to the 90s when this really started. But it was a mutual friend who called and said, these guys are making this film and they've been working on it a long time, but it's sort of in pieces and they're still trying to find a voice for it. And I said, will I get to meet some rock stars? And I said, yeah, inevitably that's going to happen. So I pretty much dove in with the team, and I found just this treasure trove of memories and active happening things, because this rock camp is extremely dynamic and it's been going nonstop basically since 1997. And it's this just vast archive of wonderful moments and rock history that is untold till now. These things kind of happen quietly off in the corners, unless you're there and it's very loud. But it was just this treasure trove, and I was thrilled, but I was also daunted because it was just gut loads of great stuff. And how are we going to figure this out? How are we going to narrow this down? But fortunately, we had some guidance from previous films that were about sort of this interface between something that brings people together, like crossword puzzles, let's say, or some other sort of MacGuffin-y kind of thing like that, and the people themselves, these great characters, both the rock stars and the campers, these as you said, these very varied and kind of diverse people who we followed in the film. So we had a plan, and the plan took a while, but we got it done, and now we're finally getting it out there. And I'm really taken by the response. People have been coming out of the woodwork because I think there's a shared DNA with this music that we all either listened to or played when we were kids. Basically, I grew up in Detroit, Michigan, listening to this music. This was the inevitable headbanging power of turning on a car radio in Detroit in the late 70s or early 80s. And I literally grew up just driving poorly down the road to, let's say an Alice Cooper tune or a Kiss song or a Foreigner. I got to meet Lou Gramm. Oh my God. It's like talking to the guys who raised you outside of your home.
Yeah. Doug, I have to ask, how much footage did you have to plow through? Because you just said you're dealing with years and years and years worth of stuff that they had. I mean, as a guy who is a trained editor primarily, I mean, that's your bread and butter. You think like an editor. You get this giant pile of stuff dumped in your lap. Like, for example, my wife has worked on docs. My wife was post supervisor for Buena Vista Social Club, which took over a year to edit because they had just hundreds of hours of footage. Was this that deep? Was this just this daunting pile of footage that you had to go through?
Oh yeah. I mean, the fact that we had not only, this archive of pretty much every rock camp. We'd have folders with numbers, these bins with Rock Camp 42 and Rock Camp, 51. And each one had a different array of characters, some repeats and overlaps, but in each camp they did something different, or they played a different song, or they had a different set of characters. So we had that initial load. And then there was also this fill-in that we needed to do to glue it all together with the human factor, with the campers. And that's the stuff that my co-director Renee and I went and filmed ourselves. That's my proudest achievement on the film, is tracking the campers themselves and going to ultimately 3 rock camps. I attended 3 rock camps with our team, and we filmed each one of them in detail, and we lived the live of the rock camp experience. Which is really something. I feel excited that I got to immerse myself in bed inside the rock camp 3 times, and I'll probably go back. I got to be honest, because it's enormous fun. It's just a wild experience.
Well, you capture 2 stories there that I mean, there are a lot of moving stories, and there are a lot of moving stories on the part of the musicians too, who are moved by the people, the campers that come. But I watched Pistol, and I thought of Tim's dad, because all the stories Tim's told me about his dad, who's a drummer, and I saw Pistol, this guy, he's connecting again to drumming, and then the guy with the special needs son who gave up his dream for his son and then comes back. I mean, you got me crying, because both of those guys are so touching, and their families are so supportive. It got me in the heart, and I didn't expect a movie about a rock camp to actually get me crying, but it did.
See that we have a term in the doc trenches, delicious tears. That's music to my heart. It's because that really was our intention, was not to just make a superficial, hey, look at those great rock stars. It was, what's the humanity of this, beyond the glitz and the flashy lights. What's the heart of this thing? And the truth is that even the rock stars, like Roger Daltrey talks about this, it's not about showing up and, climbing out of the limo and having a bunch of people throw themselves at you and you sign a couple of autographs and you head back out. This was immersive, like garage band rock, where these guys who have played, thousands of shows and, Wembley and Dodger Stadium and everything, they actually get to go into a little practice room and jam with people. With people they don't know when they come in, and they form a band over the course of the rock camp, which is really something.
It really is such a happy movie. There are a lot of very interesting stories from all of the folks in the movie. The lady accountant, drummer, But the thing that I come away from with all of these characters is that they are happy about the choices that they made in their life, and one of the reasons is that they've always stayed connected to this rock and roll thing, the music thing, one way or another. So it didn't matter to her that she decided to become an accountant and have a bunch of kids and all that. That was all cool because that drum set was always set up out in the garage. And then you add to that this experience, and you just have this film full of people who are really happy about the choices that they've made, and they're still living a portion of their life as these people who they've always been. I just think that's fantastic.
Yeah, well, that's really the heart of what we were going for. I mean, you mentioned Tammy Fisher, who literally is by day a mom, with a great family and a husband and a whole extended family that we see briefly in the film, and a very responsible, pretty high level exec at this high powered New York real estate place, and she's literally her escape is go in her basement. And there is this unbelievable shrine to Kiss, which we talk about in there. She has the ultimate Kiss collection in her basement. And she's got her drum kit, which is, she's got the interactive lights going. I think she had a fog machine. She didn't turn it on because it would have messed up our cameras. And she gets behind the skins, and I'm going, okay, what are we getting? And she kicks into Boston Smokin', which just threw me against a wall because that's one of my favorite songs when I was like 10 years old. I absolutely adored that instrumental from that first Boston album, and she crushed it. I mean, when we sunk it up to the real song, which thank God we got the rights to it, for the film. She did not miss a beat. I mean, she hit every note exactly right on those drums, and every notation is exactly the same as the recorded version, and we didn't even have to change the sync of the song. It's just unbelievable. So that was when I knew I was in the presence of greatness, when I was seeing things like that.
Doug, let me ask you, when you're shooting those things, to what degree are you already putting the movie together in your head? Because I've talked to some doc filmmakers who say, well, I'm already putting the movie together when I'm shooting it. I've talked to others who say, no, I don't want to get ahead of my skis. I want to get the good stuff and then let the movie talk to me afterwards. And I assume sometimes it depends on the movie. How did that process work for you with this one?
Well, this was a really interesting hybrid this time because there was an existing framework of pre-existing interviews with rock stars, and we had David Fishoff's history. That was kind of early. We sort of concocted what his arc would be through the film. And from his early days as literally working the Catskills, and then being the son of a cantor, all the way to becoming this impresario of these rock camps, and that was pre-existing, and we had a lot of the archival, obviously. But we wanted to make sure we had these human characters, so we followed kind of the most interesting campers that we saw at the first rock camp we attended. We said, we like her. He's really interesting. He's got a great story, and wow, the family here is fascinating. So we did what a lot of doc crews do: is we just go track stories with the hope that they would pay out. And we tracked more than we used in the film, and we probably followed about 7 or 8 people in detail. And then we ended up using 4 really primary camper stories with some cameos from some of the other ones that we filmed. And there are a couple other great stories that we just couldn't put in the film for time's sake. But in this case, we went out looking for these separate, it was almost like mini films. We went out with the idea to create the life story of each of these people as their home person and as their rock camp persona, and watch that transformation. And we found some great stuff. I mean, just hanging out with Scott Keller and his son Jackson, who you brought up earlier. And Jackson was born with this sort of profound, challenges when he was born, with natal brain damage, and they literally brought him back from this kid will never talk or even open his eyes, all the way to this kid is playing rock and roll and smiling and talking and communicating and is like a productive kid now. It's just, those are great stories. You can't write that stuff. And we were just made better by hanging out and finding these stories. They really made the film just a different experience.
Yeah, with Doug, with Dave Fishoff, sort of at the center of it all. The sort of founder, I guess, creator of all of this. Talk a little bit about him, if you would. And he just seemed like such a jovial and wonderful guy, a wannabe musician who didn't quite make it there, but became the sort of person who could put elements together and created all of these just amazing acts, bands, and artists. A little bit about David, if you would.
Yeah, David is such a fascinating character because I always think of him as he was teleported in from another wilder time. He really is from that era of characters. The Shep Gordons and the wild rock and roll era of you can't believe that story really happened, and yet he's an absolutely devout Orthodox Jew, and then he disappears on a Friday night and doesn't come back till Saturday evening. That's the combination of that and headbanging rock and roll is just too delicious to pass up. So we kind of made an extra effort to add that and add his very proud Jewishness to the film as well. I mean, we start with him riding the streets of the Fairfax district on his moped to the heavy metal strains of Hava Nagila. I mean, that was something we brought together. He loved it. He had so much fun doing that with us, and it's very true to his character. I mean, he's sort of that P.T. Barnum mixed with, the great rock promoter, a little Bill Graham in there, maybe. That there's this wild combination of things from his very strange and unique process of getting where he did through sports promotion and then finally rock promotion, going out on the road with the Monkees and Ringo Starr, and living that life, and yet still coming home to be keeping kosher and everything. And then finally Rock Camp, which was really his genius stroke. It said, how do we bring this experience that I'm seeing on the road? How do we bring it to the people? How do we let people share this? And he did it all by himself. It was this wild idea that he came up with, and somehow made grow. And now we're on 70 rock camps.
Well, he even says at one point in the film that he mortgaged his house to do this, which shows a level of commitment that you don't see today. I mean, that's a big deal to say I believe in this idea so much that I'm going to put skin in the game. People don't put skin in the game anymore.
Yeah, David is all in. I mean, he would literally to the last penny he would have fought for this vision, and fortunately, he had some really good friends, come in and give him good advice and sort of set up a business plan and get it all figured out how he could make this solvent and yet also get as many people to experience it from all different walks of life. Make it manageable. And it took off, and it's been going for so many years now with a lot of people coming back too. That's when it's working, is people love this community so much that you get repeat campers coming back 2, 3, 5, 10 times with different artists to work with. And Tammy's a great example. She had been before as a drummer, which is no problem for her. She's great, but she was going to challenge herself in this film to sing, which is much more vulnerable. And it's something where she actually was allowed to try something and potentially fail. And it was great to watch her go through it.
Well, you even have a couple in the film who I think they take every vacation, they go to rock camp.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And the look on the wife's face, it's like, yeah, we basically go here. You could tell the husband's in seventh heaven. He's going to go out and jam after this, and she's going to go back to the hotel room until the show. It was those moments are just too true,
One of the things that was particularly impressed me about this movie is seeing these rock stars. Rock stars, Alice Cooper, Daltrey, big rock stars who actually were working in the camp, Nancy Wilson, working with all of these folks, and how they were so utterly and completely approachable, how they were not prima donnas. No matter how they strutted back in the days of their greatest stardom, here with these people, these kids of these folks of different levels, they were just rocking, man. So it really, I don't know, it just put the lie to the notion that all of these guys are just drug addled old nutbags, and they're not. They're like these people who at one time were 12 and 13 and 16 and wanted to rock. And they get where all of these rock campers, these campers, are coming from.
Yeah, I think one of my favorites along that line was Paul Stanley, who, as a kid in Detroit, you can't avoid Kiss. I mean, everybody's a member of the Kiss Army when you're in 1978 and you got the bell-bottom jeans and everything. But here's Paul Stanley, many years down the road, and he's just the most gracious guy. He's actually super enthusiastic to come and be a part of the camp. It's not something he has to do. It's something that he's just really pleased to be there. And he, in the film, he actually gives this really kind of sort of heartfelt talk about the future and why things are important, and talking about the next generation and sharing these things. And it's all real. He's very, very warm guy, very, very concerned for sharing and putting stuff out there. There were so many people that I got to meet. Lou Graham was incredibly gracious, and we did a longer interview that I wish I could add on maybe we'll have the Blu-ray extras for that. But I talked about listening to Foreigner when we used to go skiing in my hometown in Detroit, and then he just waxed nostalgic about how much he loved Detroit and playing there and everything. And it's just some other level to get to really talk to these guys and realize that they're just working guys. They happen to get paid well for what they do and they get a lot of adulation, but it's work, and they want to know that people appreciate them. And this is kind of one way to get close to the fans and actually not just close, but really right in the room and play with them. Yeah, it's something else.
Two things I did want to make mention of real quickly. One, with respect to Fish Off and that practical joke that Joe Walsh orchestrated, it was priceless because you also have the footage of it, which is amazing. It's the way it's edited together between the actual archival footage and their recollection of it is just a beautiful piece of filmmaking. And I want to know how that magic happened, but I also want to just underline a great line based on what you and Tim were just talking about from Gene Simmons, where Gene Simmons says at a certain point, if any of us were on The Voice, do you think would we even get on The Voice? And I thought, that really speaks to the whole point of what's going on here, which is these are self-made people, and they don't care if somebody says you're no good, you'll never make it, that your hair is too long, your voice isn't good enough. They relate to all of that naysaying that these campers have heard in their lives. They don't care because they just plowed through anyway, and they built a career whether or not anybody told them they couldn't. And that was inspiring to me. That just says anybody can make it, and we can all stand on each other's shoulders. And I thought that was a beautiful thing.
Yeah, there's a reason that quote is in the trailer too, because I think we wanted to point out that the accessibility of this, and we're in that age of auto-tune and your instant star because you got on TV and you blew the crowd away. That's not the course of a lot of classic rock bands, for sure, from that era that many of these musicians are from. It was playing in the garage and gradually building up at the local crappy bar, and then somebody notices you and maybe you get a side gig with a bigger band, and most of them had paid those dues. There was no instant fame really for very many of these folks back in the day. And also, if you think about how wild and experimental some of this stuff was, even when you think of dinosaur rock and it's so predictable, it kind of wasn't. I mean, people would play in the studio and they would try things, and there was a lot of a sense of anything is possible now that we're just playing around. Also, fairly altered states of consciousness as they were going through this, and that freedom, that kind of like, let's break some boundaries. You still see that with a lot of great artists today, but it doesn't feel as raw as it did, and I always hate to be the one to say my day, but I think it's true. I think there's this organic nature to that music and the way it was produced and the way that real instruments were so important, and whether you were good at them or you were really experimental with them, you did wacky things with them. That was kind of the tale of the tape in those days. And also the attitude, the rock attitude, which arguably there are all kinds of issues and flaws with it too, but there's a certain persona that you adopt as a rock and roller in the classic sense, and that's part of what rock camp is. And there's a brief moment in the film. It's one of my favorite things. Is one of the older female mentors, the camp counselors we call them, who had played in all these like punk and heavy metal bands, and she's showing this group of young girls how to have rock and roll attitude. how to stand and how to put your instrument across you and how to hit the notes, not just how to play and hit the right notes, but how to have stage presence and how to like come out there and be bold and be this brash persona that sort of rock and roll demands,
Yeah.
And it's just such a sweet moment because these girls are getting training in confidence more than competence, and it's really something to watch.
All of which can be taken back with them into the rest of their lives, no matter what they're doing. So whether it's giving that meeting, down at the corporation, or whatever it is, being a doctor, being a surgeon, you rock that stuff. Is what you do. And they know how to rock it. Whether it's it requires the instrument or not. It's just really a fantastic movie, Doug, and it really felt good to watch it now in the midst of everything that's sort of like going on, and to know that people are out there doing the things that they do, and it really comes out in an amazing, fantastic kind of way.
Yeah, I appreciate that sense of the why it's coming out now. I mean, obviously, it came out now because we got it done, but also the timing is surprisingly appropriate, I think, for something like this because it's so aspirational. It's a film. First of all, it allows you to escape like rock and roll does. For a little while, you can pretend you're the greatest star in the world up on the stage, and you've got screaming fans, and it's aspirational, and that we'll be back. We're going to come back. And right now, we can't have rock camp in that sense, but it will come back. And music being performed live will come back, and people will start, playing in their garage bands. I'm sure a lot of people are recording cool stuff right now, but that experience of being in the room and just rocking out again will come back. And this film, I hope, is kind of that front end of anticipating this new era where we get our stuff back, and we get to go back and do the things we love.
Well, it has been pointed out that there's a reason why World War I and the 1918 pandemic was followed by the Roaring Twenties, and I think you're right. I think we're due for another Roaring Twenties. Maybe not exactly all the same ways, but I think people want that aspirational thing. I think they you don't know what you've got till it's gone, and now people have had a taste of how much they really love all this stuff and the things they took for granted. And I think you're absolutely spot on right. Let me ask you one thing just to kind of wrap out. Were you editing this film primarily during COVID and lockdown?
This was edited over such a long period of time, and a lot of it, I'll give a great shout out to my co-conspirator on a lot of this film, Renee Barron, who did a ton of editing on this. I was very happy to let another voice really kind of shape a lot of the stories once we had the material in and we were dealing with all the archive. But fortunately, no, most of it was done pre-COVID. Okay. The shooting certainly was, and we were so lucky that we captured actually the last rock camps before COVID. The last one I went to was in Las Vegas in December before COVID broke out, I think. And that was one of the most fun times we had. If I had known that I was about to lose this experience for a year and a half, I would have probably savored it even more. But it was kind of this valedictory end to the process of just enjoying the process, seeing the people having fun at the camp. And now I really treasure those memories because we had a great time shooting it,
Well, I would love. I mean, I'm not going to urge you to do this, but I will express the sentiment that I would love for you to do the kind of 7-Up thing and revisit this at some point in the future and sort of see where some of these people have gone. I'd love to know that because I'm kind of in love with these people now, both the rockers and the campers.
Funny you bring that up because and I just want to put a shout out as well to Michael Apted. I had the great honor of working with him on a late project of his, unrelated to the Up projects, but he was an amazing guy with great stories and a true believer in documentary veritas. In the process of being patient and finding the story. So I really miss Michael. I saw him at a bunch of events and we became friends. But yeah, let's just say things have been discussed about the future of rock camp in many forms. So we will see what happens next.
Tim, you have any final thoughts?
No, well, just praise is all that I have left, and outstanding work. Everyone, see this, and how is it presenting in the world at the moment, Doug?
Yeah, well, there's several layers to this, but the most exciting right now is that you all in this great audience can help your local theater by watching a digital screening of Rock Camp, and you can find out where it's playing in your local indie theaters. There are these digital screenings that you can just pay a ticket price and watch it with your family and friends. I think you get a window of time to watch it when you do that. And the money goes not only to help Rock Camp, but also to help your local theater, which we're obviously all very much concerned about the future of indie cinema, especially, and those great marquees you see in downtowns. And that makes me happy that we're supporting those kind of theaters all over the country. So if you go to www.rockcampthemovie.com, there's a complete guide. There's a ticket purchase site. And again, you can find your local theater if you want to and purchase it from them, and they'll get proceeds from that, which is great.
So not unlike the Lemley's virtual theater or something like
that. Exactly. In fact, I think Lemley's is running us. Okay. So that's one of the many. Yeah. And, like my hometown of Detroit, there's a wonderful independent cinema called Cinema Detroit that's running it right now. And I'm just very grateful that in any way we could help them and send a little funding that way.
Sweet. That's great. And so that is, again, www.rockcampthemovie.com. Is that correct?
Yep, and the trailer's there and a lot of other information.
Great, and I'm going to make sure that is linked to our mention of the film and this interview in the meta text for the podcast, and the people will be able to just click that link and go right there and find a way to see the film. Doug, thank you so much. This has been such a privilege. Wish you all the best with this and future endeavors. Really looking forward to what you do next. Is there anything that you want to plug in particular that's coming down the pike?
Oh boy, well, I mean, to keep in the amazing music genre, definitely everybody should check out Mr. Soul, which I was proudly a co-producer with Melissa Hayslip, who, there's another case of a film that took a decade to really come to fruit, but what an amazing ride that is.
I love that movie. I was part of the IDA, the Documentary Association, and it was just fantastic. Loved being able to support that film.
Yeah, well, we're hoping a lot of people get to see it, and everybody really will soon, because it's going to be the big Independent Lens PBS event film in February during African American History Month. So we're so excited to roll this out to the world. But it is also in digital cinemas right now. I think it's MrSoulTheMovie.com. And that's another one that will make you feel better about being alive now, and we'll show you a lot of the history of where we were and where we should be going. Yeah,
outstanding. Doug Blush, it has been a privilege to have you on the podcast. Wish you all the best with it. Tim and I will sign off now, and we encourage all of our listeners to go to the site www.rockcampthemovie.com. Find where you can support your local theater and support the film. The film is Rock Camp, and it will set your heart it'll set your heart aflame in the rockiest possible way as we come to the end of this pandemic, and it'll give us it's just a wonderful shot in the arm for what comes next. Thank you, Doug.
Well, guys, thank you so much. Rock on, everybody. Thank you.